Here is the finalized, merged script. 2 key updates have been applied: grammar and flow. The text has been polished for natural, spoken American English, removing repetitive sentence structures while preserving the cold, methodical, emotional tone. Number conversion. All numerical figures, time, money, temperature, codes, have been converted into words to ensure smooth narration. The Lazarus trap. Finally, free of the bitch. My sister Monica laughed as she popped the cork on my vintage champagne. She was already wearing my diamond necklace. I stood on the other side of the glass, watching them celebrate my death. The plane crash had happened 6 hours ago. I wasn't even a confirmed casualty yet, just missing. But my family wasn't mourning. They were dividing up my assets before my body was even cold. Before I show you exactly how I turned their celebration into a prison, drop a comment below. If you came home and saw your sibling celebrating your death, would you scream? Or would you go silent? I want to know who I'm talking to tonight. The scream built in my throat, a primal thing that wanted to shatter the glass and tear them apart. But I swallowed it. It tasted like bile and ash. Screaming would only get me pity. It wouldn't get me justice. I stepped back into the shadows of the overhang, where the rain was heavy enough to hide me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The screen was spiderwebbed with cracks from the impact, shards of glass digging into my thumb, but the backlight still glowed. It was the only weapon I needed. I opened the smart home interface. My fingers left bloody smears on the glass as I navigated to the security tab. The system recognized me instantly. Welcome back, Administrator. Inside the house, Monica was refilling her glass, leaning over to whisper something to Jeffrey that made him snicker. They looked so comfortable, so safe in the kingdom they thought they had inherited. They didn't realize they were just squatters. I tapped the icon labeled Fortress Mode. Through the glass, I heard the heavy, mechanical thud clack of 12 hardened steel deadbolts sliding home simultaneously on every exterior door. It sounded like a prison cell slamming shut. Inside, Jeffrey jumped, spilling his wine on the Persian rug I had bought in Morocco. Monica spun around, looking at the front door. I could see her mouth moving. What was that? She probably thought it was the storm, or maybe the house settling under the wind. She didn't know the house was responding to its master. I wasn't done. I swiped to the environmental controls. This house was designed to be a sanctuary, a warm cocoon against the harsh coastal weather. But tonight, it would be an icebox. I overrode the thermostat scheduling and dragged the temperature slider down. 72 degrees, 65, 55. I locked the control panel with a passcode only I knew. The vents would soon start pumping freezing air into the room, stripping away the cozy warmth they were basking in. Then, the final touch. Communication. I navigated to the network settings. With a single press, I severed the Wi-Fi connection and engaged the digital firewall I had installed for high-security privacy. Inside, the jazz music streaming from the speakers died instantly. The room went silent. I saw Jeffrey pull out his phone, tapping the screen aggressively. Frowning, he held it up, walking around the room, searching for a signal that wasn't there. They were locked in. They were freezing. And they were cut off from the world. I watched them on the live feed from my phone screen, the blue light illuminating my face in the darkness. They looked confused now, the celebration dampening as the atmosphere in the house shifted from festive to oppressive. They thought they were the new owners. They didn't understand that a smart house is only as loyal as its code. And I wrote the code. I wasn't the sister who died in a plane crash anymore. I was the operator. And the walls were about to start closing in. I watched them shiver on the high-definition screen of my phone, huddled together on the Italian leather sofa I had paid for. It was almost funny. They were terrified of the house, terrified of the sudden cold, but they still refused to leave. They couldn't leave. Because leaving meant walking away from the fortune they thought they had just won. That was the thing about my family. Their greed was always stronger than their survival instinct. For years, I told myself that if I just gave enough, they would finally love me. I paid off Jeffrey's $80,000 gambling debt so Monica wouldn't lose her condo. I bought this cliffside estate and let them treat it like their own vacation resort. I funded their lifestyle, their cars, their delusions of grandeur. I thought generosity was a bridge. I didn't realize it was a weapon. I used to wonder why Monica looked at me with such venom whenever I handed her a check. I thought maybe I wasn't being kind enough. Maybe I was too controlling. But staring at her now, wrapping herself in my cashmere throw, I finally understood the parasite's paradox. She didn't hate me because I was stingy. She hated me because I was generous. Every time I saved them, I was shining a spotlight on their own failures. Every dollar I gave was a reminder that she couldn't provide for herself. She didn't want my help. She wanted my life, but without the work that went into building it, She wanted to erase the benefactor so she could pretend the wealth was hers all along. I was about to turn away, to let them freeze for a few more hours, when movement on the periphery of the lower patio caught my eye. My breath hitched. Down by the glass doors, huddled against the storm shutters, was a lump of wet, golden fur. Barnaby, my 12-year-old golden retriever. He had severe arthritis in his back hips. He couldn't handle the cold, let alone a storm like this. He was pressing his body against the glass, shivering so violently it looked like a seizure. I tapped the audio feed for the living room, cranking the volume to maximum. "Jeff, stop pacing," Monica snapped, her voice tinny through the phone speakers. "It's just a power outage." "What about the dog?" Jeffrey asked, looking toward the window. "He's scratching at the glass again. If the neighbors see, let nature take care of the beast," Monica said, taking another sip of my champagne. Her voice was dismissive. "Bored. I'm not letting that thing back in. It smells like her. Besides, if he freezes to death, it saves us a trip to the vet tomorrow. We're cleaning house, remember?" The phone nearly cracked in my grip. They hadn't just kicked him out. They were actively waiting for him to die. Barnaby was the only living thing that had looked at me with unconditional love in the last decade. He was innocent, and Monica was letting him freeze to death simply because he was an inconvenience. Because he smelled like me. The cold calculation of it stopped my heart. This wasn't just greed anymore. It wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was sadism. The last thread of mercy I had holding me back snapped. I didn't want to just scare them anymore. I didn't want to just teach them a lesson. I wanted to dismantle them. I wanted to take everything they valued, their freedom, their future, their arrogance, and burn it to ash. I looked at Barnaby one last time, promising him silently that I was coming. Then I looked at Monica. She wanted to clean house? Fine. I would help her. But she wasn't going to like what got thrown out. The temperature inside the living room had dropped to 55 degrees. On the high-definition feed, I could see plumes of white mist puffing from Jeffrey's mouth every time he hyperventilated. Monica was hugging herself, her teeth chattering audibly even over the audio feed. That silk dress she had worn to look like the grieving, elegant heiress offered zero protection against the coastal chill I was pumping into the room. She lunged for the wall switch that controlled the gas fireplace. I watched her flip it frantically. Click, click, click. Nothing happened. I had disabled the electronic starter valve 10 minutes ago. The gas was cut. There would be no easy warmth for them tonight. "Damn piece of junk house," she screamed, kicking the hearth. She looked wild now, her hair disheveled, the veneer of sophistication cracking under the physical discomfort. "Jeff, find something to burn. I'm freezing." "Burn what?" Jeffrey stammered, his eyes darting around the minimalist room. "It's a gas fireplace, Monica. There's no wood." "Then find something else." Her eyes landed on the built-in bookshelves lining the west wall. My stomach tightened. Those shelves didn't hold generic novels. They held 20 years of my life. My architectural sketchbooks, my hand-bound design journals, the portfolios from my first struggling years in New York. They were the only things I had truly cared about saving. Monica didn't hesitate. She grabbed a stack of leather-bound journals, my thesis project, and threw them into the cold grate. "Monica, wait," Jeffrey said. But he didn't stop her. "What?" "She doesn't need them where she is," she snapped. She produced a gold lighter from her purse, probably stolen from my desk, and flicked it. The flame caught the edge of the heavy paper. I watched, motionless, as the fire began to curl the pages of my past. It wasn't just heat she was after. I could see it in the aggressive way she tore the bindings. She was erasing me. She was scrubbing the house of my intellect so she could fill the void with her own mediocrity. It was a hateful, symbolic cremation. As the fire grew, feeding on my drawings, Jeffrey's anxiety finally bubbled over. He wasn't looking at the fire. He was looking at his watch. "This doesn't fix the problem, Mon," he hissed, his voice trembling. "It's Sunday night. The lender is coming tomorrow at 9 in the morning. If we don't have the deed signed over..." "Shut up, Jeff." "I can't shut up. I forged the power of attorney to get that hard money loan. $1.8 million, Monica. If they find out she's dead before we get the cash, the deal voids. And if the deal voids, the guys from Vegas." He trailed off, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the cold. "They said they'd take my thumbs first. So that was it. They hadn't just planned to sell the house. That took too long. They had leveraged it. They had taken out a predatory, high-interest loan against my equity to pay off Jeffrey's gambling debts immediately. They were going to strip the equity, take the cash, and let the bank foreclose on my legacy." Monica threw my award-winning portfolio onto the flames. The fire roared higher, casting long, dancing shadows against the walls. "Stop whining," she said, her face illuminated by the burning remains of my career. "Who cares about the house? Let the lenders take it. By Monday morning, the life insurance payout clears. $2.5 million. Tax-free. We pay off your sharks, we dump this place, and we'll be on a flight to Rio before the autopsy is even scheduled. She turned to the fire, warming her hands over my burning work. Burn it all, Jeff. By tomorrow, Cynthia never existed. I stood in the rain, the phone screen glowing in my hand. They thought they were burning my past. They didn't realize they were lighting the fuse on their own destruction. They wanted a show? I would give them a show. I closed the environmental controls and opened the lighting tab. It was time to change the mood. The fire Monica started was flickering, casting weak, desperate shadows against the wall. It wasn't enough to warm the room, but it was enough to light their faces, masks of greed and anxiety. I didn't want them to have even that small comfort. I didn't want them to see each other. I wanted them to feel the isolation. I tapped the master lighting icon on my screen. Inside, the house plunged into absolute, suffocating darkness. The recessed LEDs died. The landscape lighting outside winked out. For a second, the only light was the dying embers of my journals in the grate. I heard Monica shriek. A sharp, undignified sound. Jeffrey stumbled, knocking over a side table. Jeff? Jeff, the power. I can't see anything. Where's your phone? I didn't let them adjust to the dark. I swiped right to the emergency protocol setting. This was a feature designed for break-ins, meant to disorient intruders while guiding the homeowner to safety. But tonight, I was using it for psychological warfare. The emergency backup strips flared to life. But they weren't white. They were deep, pulsating crimson. The entire living room was instantly bathed in the color of fresh blood. The light wasn't steady. It throbbed in a slow, rhythmic beat, like a giant, dying heart. The effect was visceral. Monica froze. Her skin turned a sickly purple under the red glare. Jeffrey spun in circles, looking at the ceiling. The atmosphere shifted from power outage to horror movie in a split second. What the hell is this? Jeffrey yelled, his voice cracking. Is it the security system? It's a glitch, Monica hissed, though she was backing away from the walls. It's just a stupid glitch. Go find the breaker box. I'm not going into the basement in this. I pressed the microphone icon on my app. I didn't speak. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of hearing my voice yet. Instead, I opened my cloud files and selected a file named Jeffrey, Confession, OG12. I had recorded it 3 months ago, when Jeffrey thought he was alone in the study, begging his bookie for an extension. I routed the audio to the hidden surround sound speakers built into the living room walls. The room filled with static. Then Jeffrey's voice, amplified and distorted, boomed from everywhere at once. Please, Tony, don't send the guys. I'll get the money. My sister-in-law. She's loaded. I can get her signature. I can forge it if I have to. Just don't take the house. Don't hurt Monica. In the red light, Jeffrey went rigid. The color drained from his face so completely he looked like a corpse. He wasn't looking at Monica. He was looking at the air. Terrified. It's them, he whispered, trembling. The Vegas guys. They bugged the house. They're here. Shut up, Monica screamed, looking around wildly. It's not them. It's the house. It's malfunctioning. I'll sell the jewelry, the recording continued, Jeffrey's voice sobbing now. She has a safe. I can crack it. Just give me a week. The recording cut off with a sharp electronic snap. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the thrumming of the red lights. Jeffrey was hyperventilating, backing up until he hit the wall. He thought he was about to be executed by loan sharks. Monica looked furious, realizing her husband's incompetence had been broadcast to the empty room. They were paranoid. They were terrified. They were primed. I looked down at the smartwatch I had left sitting on the kitchen island earlier that day, before the flight. It was still synced to my phone. It was sitting right there, in the middle of the open-plan kitchen, glowing faintly in the red darkness. It was the centerpiece of my final test. I opened the health monitor app on my phone. I located the override command. It was time to give them a choice. A choice that would determine whether they walked out of here in handcuffs or body bags. I hovered my thumb over the button labeled Cardiac Event Simulation. I took a breath, the cold air filling my lungs, and pressed my thumb down on the screen. Initiate. Inside the kitchen, the smartwatch sitting on the marble island lit up like a flare. It began to emit a high-pitched, rhythmic screech, the universal sound of a medical emergency. Simultaneously, Monica's phone, which was still paired to my family account for emergencies, began to vibrate violently on the coffee table. I watched them jump. Monica grabbed her phone, her eyes widening as she read the notification flashing on the screen. I knew exactly what it said because I had programmed it. Critical alert. Almira's vitals detected. Heart rate dropping. Cardiac event imminent. GPS location. Home. Then, the automated voice from the smart speakers cut through the red silence. User Elmira detected nearby. Vitals critical. Auto-dialing 911 in 10 seconds. 10, 9. This was the trap. This was the moment that would strip them of everything. The law has a very specific clause known as the Slayer Rule. It states that you cannot inherit from a person if you are responsible for their death. But it goes deeper than murder. If you have the ability to save a life and you actively, maliciously choose to prevent aid to secure a financial windfall, you are legally disqualified from the estate. I didn't need Monica to stab me. I just needed her to let me die. 8. 7. Jeffrey scrambled toward the kitchen island, eyes wide with panic. She's alive! Monica. The watch picked up a heartbeat. If she dies here, the loan sharks. Don't you touch that phone! Monica screamed, lunging at him. She grabbed his arm, digging her nails into his bicep. Think, you idiot. If she survives, we go to jail. She knows everything. She heard everything. 6. 5. I don't care. Jeffrey yelled, trying to shake her off. I need her signature to stop them from breaking my legs. If she dies, we get $2.5 million by Tuesday. Monica shoved him hard, sending him stumbling back against the refrigerator. We pay the sharks. We keep the house. We win. Let her die, Jeff. Just let her die. 4. 3. Jeffrey froze. I watched the calculation happen in real time on his face. The fear of the loan sharks warred with the fear of murder. And greed won. He slumped against the fridge, covering his ears. He was an accomplice now. Monica snatched up her phone. The screen was flashing red. Cancel emergency call? But it wasn't as simple as pressing a button. To abort a medical distress call, the system required a security PIN to prevent accidental cancellations. Monica knew my PIN. It was our mother's birthday. I watched the camera feed zoom in on her fingers. She didn't hesitate. She didn't fumble. With cold, steady precision, she tapped in the 4 digits. 0, 8, 2, 4. That was the nail in the coffin. That specific action proved intent. It wasn't a panic reaction. It was a cognitive choice to override a life-saving system. 2. 1. Emergency call aborted, the robotic voice announced. The screeching stopped. The house fell silent again, bathed in the bloody red light. Monica stared at the phone for a second, then frantically swiped through the menu. I saw her delete the notification history. She looked up at Jeffrey, her chest heaving, a twisted look of triumph on her face. She's dead, Jeff, she whispered, her voice trembling with adrenaline. Whatever pulse that watch found, it's gone now. Let her stay dead. I had it. I had the footage. The cloud server had already backed up the video file. I was about to move, to end this charade, when Monica suddenly froze. She squinted at the bookshelf across the room. The red emergency light had caught the reflection of the camera lens hidden between the spines of my encyclopedias. What is that? She hissed. She marched over to the shelf and ripped the books away. She stared right into the lens, her face contorted with realization. We're being watched, she screamed. It's a camera! Someone's watching us! She grabbed the heavy iron poker from the fireplace tool set and swung it with all her strength. Crack. The video feed on my phone went black. Find the router. I heard her screaming through the audio feed that was still running. Smash everything. Rip the wires out. If there's no recording, it didn't happen. She thought she had won. She thought that by destroying the physical camera, she had destroyed the evidence. She didn't understand the cloud. She didn't understand that the verdict had already been uploaded. She thought she was destroying the proof of her crime. But she was just destroying her only leverage. It was time to go inside. I didn't rush. I walked to the front door, disengaged the electronic lock with a single tap, and pushed it open. The wind howled behind me, blowing rain into the foyer. But I didn't care. I stood in the archway, drenched, my clothes torn, holding Barnaby's shivering body in my arms. The red emergency lights cast long, grotesque shadows across the room. Monica spun around, the poker still raised in her hand. When she saw me, she didn't scream. She didn't drop the weapon. She smiled. It was a terrifying, calculating expression that sent a chill deeper than the storm. Well, she said, her voice steady. The prodigal sister returns from the dead. Put the poker down, Monica, I said, my voice hoarse. It's over. Is it? She reached into her purse on the sofa and pulled out a thick envelope. She tossed it onto the coffee table. I don't think so. Jeffrey, call the police. Tell them my sister just broke in. Tell them she's armed and violent. What? Jeffrey stammered, looking between us. Do it, she snapped. Then she looked back at me, her eyes gleaming. You see, Elmira, I prepared for this. I knew you might survive. You're too stubborn to die easy, so I have a backup plan. She opened the envelope. Inside were medical forms. I've been building a file on you for months, she said, tapping the papers. Doctor's notes about your paranoia. Witness statements about your erratic behavior. I even have a forged prescription for antipsychotics in your name. When the police get here, I'm not going to jail. You are. It's called a 5150 hold. Involuntary psychiatric commitment. You're having a psychotic break, Elmira. You faked your own death to torture us. You locked us in here. You're dangerous. I stared at her. It was brilliant. It was evil. If the police believed her, I would be locked away for 72 hours. Long enough for her to access my accounts, transfer the funds, and disappear. She wasn't just trying to steal my money. She was trying to steal my sanity. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. She had already called them. You're shaking, Monica mocked, stepping closer. Are you cold? Or are you realizing you lost? The police burst through the open door. Guns drawn. Flashlights cutting through the red gloom. Drop the weapon. Hands in the air. Monica dropped the poker instantly. She raised her hands, tears suddenly streaming down her face. Officer, thank God. It's my sister. She's alive. But she's having an episode. She locked us in. She's hurting the dog. The officers looked at me wet, dirty, holding a dog, standing in a house bathed in red emergency lights. I looked like a nightmare. They moved toward me. Ma'am, put the dog down. Slowly. She needs help, Monica sobbed, pointing at the fake medical file. She's off her meds. She tried to kill us. Please, take her to the hospital before she hurts herself. It was working. The officers were looking at me with pity and caution, reaching for their restraints. Monica smirked behind her hands. I didn't fight. I didn't yell. I shifted Barnaby to one arm and slowly, very slowly, pulled my phone from my pocket with the other. Officer, I said, my voice calm and clear, cutting through Monica's theatrics. Before you detain me, I'd like you to look at something. Ma'am, put the phone down. It's evidence, I said. Cloud backup. Time-stamped 3 minutes ago. I turned the screen toward them. I pressed play. The video was crystal clear. It showed Monica standing in the red light, holding her phone. It showed the alert flashing, auto-dialing 911. It showed Jeffrey begging her to call. And then, it showed Monica's face cold, focused, devoid of panic as she typed in my birthday PIN code. 0824. The robotic voice on the video announced. Emergency call aborted. The room went silent. The officers watched Monica delete the notification. They heard her say, She's dead, Jeff. Let her stay dead. I looked at Monica. Her smirk was gone. Her face was the color of ash. That, I said to the lead officer, is a video of my sister overriding a life-saving medical alert to ensure I died, so she could inherit my estate. Under the law, that is negligent homicide and intent to commit fraud. And by the way, she's the one who kicked the dog out. The officer looked from the phone to Monica. His expression hardened. He holstered his taser and reached for his handcuffs. Monica Vance, he said, walking past me. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back. No! Monica shrieked, backing away. It's a deep fake. She edited it. She's crazy. Save it for the judge, the officer said, spinning her around and clicking the cuffs onto her wrists. I stood there, stroking Barnaby's wet fur, watching the red lights pulse against the walls. The trap had snapped shut, and Monica was the one inside. The red emergency lights finally stopped pulsing when the police cut the main breaker, plunging the house into a heavy, final darkness. I watched them drag Monica out. She wasn't elegant anymore. She was screaming, thrashing, accusing the officers, accusing me, accusing the world. Jeffrey didn't scream. He walked out with his head down, weeping silently, knowing that the loan sharks would find him even in a holding cell. I stood in the foyer of the mansion I had built, listening to the sirens fade. The house felt massive, cold, and completely empty. It wasn't a home. It was just a pile of expensive stone that had almost become my tomb. 3 weeks later, I sat in a lawyer's office, signing the final papers. But they weren't for the inheritance. I had already secured that. These papers were for the house. Monica had taken out a $1.8 million hard money lien against the property, using the forged power of attorney. If I kept the house, I kept the debt. I would have to spend years fighting predatory lenders in court. So, I made a choice. I signed a deed in lieu of foreclosure. I gave the keys to the bank. I let the lenders take the cliffside estate to satisfy the debt Monica created. It was the ultimate poetic justice. The asset she killed for was now worthless to her, and a burden I refused to carry. I walked away with the $2.5 million life insurance payout liquid, tax-free, and untouchable by her creditors, because the Slayer rule had legally erased her as a beneficiary. I left the mansion behind. I didn't take the furniture. I didn't take the art. I let it all go. Now, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in the city. It's smaller. It doesn't have a cliffside view. But it has something the mansion never had. Warmth. I looked over at the rug by the electric fireplace. Barnaby was sleeping there, twitching in a dream. Safe and warm. He doesn't limp as much anymore. The vet said he just needed care and a dry place to rest. I opened my laptop and pulled up my contact list. I scrolled down to family. There were only 2 names left. Monica and Jeffrey. I didn't hesitate. I didn't feel a pang of guilt. I selected both names and hit delete. The screen refreshed. The list was empty. I closed the laptop and took a sip of tea. The silence in the apartment wasn't lonely. It was rich. It was the sound of a life that finally, truly belonged to me. I didn't keep the mansion, but I kept my soul. If you've ever had to burn a bridge to save yourself, share this story. You are not alone.